Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Serenity Engage Facebook Live. I have a very special guest today. My co-podcaster at Mavericks of Senior Living will be joining us on this podcast today. So stay tuned for that. And this episode is brought to you, as always, by Serenity Engage. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about communication in senior care, specifically the first 14 days after move-in. So I would like to invite my co-podcaster from Mavericks of Senior Living and my guest today on, Francis Lagasse. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it as always, and look forward to this really important discussion around communication, because I think we're all seeing that it matters. It really matters.
Yeah, and there's some new research that has come out, and I want to share that with our audience. And by the way, if you're listening live, please feel free to ask questions. We will answer them live here. If you are listening afterwards, feel free still to ask questions. We'll make sure that they get answered. There's been some new research out from Scripps Gerontology Center about communication during COVID with family members. And one of the things that really struck me, and I'll have a link to that research in this Facebook Live post, but one of the things that really struck me is about half of all family members that were surveyed feel like they're getting enough information about their individual loved one right now. And, you know, when I first read it, I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then I went, wait a minute, when did half become okay? When did half become an acceptable amount when we're talking about people's mental health, their emotions, their anxiety, their loved one? This is the person they care about most in the world. And so we've been talking about this for a long time, Francis, the communication in general.
We absolutely have. And that's when you say, you know, we keep talking about the number. When I keep hearing it every time, 50% are not getting what they want. It just begins to keep resonating with me. Is like, it's like kind of finishing your homework 50% or finishing your it's like, where else would 50% be acceptable? Because, you know, you put it in an academic setting, 50% isn't even passing, right? I mean,
You're right. Think about that. That's a failing grade. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like, and we've talked about this, is like we've just kind of accept what we're supposed to accept in long-term care and aging, right? It's like, well, 50% is the best we can do. We're just deal with it type thing. And I know you and I can't stand that. Like, it just drives me crazy.
Yeah, and I do want to say that this is not an across-the-board statement either, because there are communities like Assured, your communities, like several other communities that I know of that are doing amazing work in communication.
But and you know why we're doing that, though?
Why?
Because the Serenity Engage platform that you've built has been incredibly helpful. I mean, it's taken it away. I don't want to, you know, obviously dive deep into Serenity, but it really has made it easier. Like, that's the thing that our staff keeps coming back to me and says it's easier than sending a text, because that's how we were doing a lot of our communication before, was text or emails.
Right. And phone calls.
Calls. And so I've, you know, been a believer from the beginning of your platform, but when you hear the staff come back and say it's simple and fast, that sells it to me, because I'm not adding work to their load.
Good point. And that's absolutely one of the core tenets of Serenity, is that we're not adding work to the staff. In fact, we're giving them more time to care. And I think that's one of the concerns from a lot of these communities, is that just in general, whether it's Serenity or anything, any way that they're going to add to communicate is going to take staff time away. And what really tugs at my heart in this research, many of the things tug at my heart, but one of them stood out to me, that family is afraid to ask for more communication because they know staff is already overwhelmed. And it should never be that way. It really breaks my heart. And yes, staff can be overwhelmed, but that's a solvable problem.
For sure. Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I found that to be interesting, and I'm just going to show this. And if anyone wants a copy of this, I'm happy to mail it to you. It's hard to see. This basically is a quote from Albert Einstein.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Think differently. We cannot solve problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And I love that quote because it's so inspiring to me with my Mavericks of Senior Living hat, Chief Inspiration Officer over here. I'm so inspired by that. It's not that we intended to create problems, but we can look at it now and say, okay, whatever happened, happened. Now this is what we're dealing with. Let's think differently and create some solutions. So we did that. At Mavericks of Senior Living, we asked the community to help solve this problem. What I love about what we did over there was that we did not sit down and say, we have the answer. Mm-hmm. We sat down and said, who has the answer? The community. So do you want to share a little bit about what we did in pulling together all the different people to talk?
Well, I think that was the best part is that we pulled professionals in the industry. We pulled professionals outside the industry. We pulled family members. We pulled, older adults themselves. That was what was really cool, was that it really was a collective kind of collaboration of different minds and different perspectives to build out, to really step back and look at how do we want to be communicated with and what is effective communication. Because I think a lot of times, well, I sent an email, that should be good enough, right? Or I made a phone call, but was it effective? Did it really add that peace of mind? Did it add a sense of comfort? Because for me, I believe with our team is that if we're only taking care of the resident and not adding peace to the family member, we're only doing half of our job. Back to that 50% number, right? Okay. But when we start taking care of the family and the resident, that's when we have this tremendous care circle that you always talk about, right? The care circle, that the resident and family feel this connection. Even if they can't physically be connected, they are connected because we're sharing their good times, their bad times, their in-between times. And it just adds peace across the board, which, I mean, that's the best part of this is we're not just taking care of our residents, we're taking care of the family. I mean, that's what's often overlooked. And so I think that's what matters here.
And that it really is a team effort, right? And what I love about what we did was we pulled that team together, and that team included people from senior living themselves, executive directors, directors of nursing, caregivers, hands-on caregivers. We had hospice perspective in there. We had home health, home care. We had family caregivers, family members, and we had the older adults, as you mentioned. And so what that group created was this amazing calendar, and we're going to show that here. And it's the first 14 days after move-in. So what we did with that group was we focused on one specific problem, which is there is an enormous, I can never say the word, there's an enormous amount of lawsuits against senior living that are related to the first 14 days. And we asked ourselves why.
Yep.
And really the why is because there's not an opportunity or there's not a focus on building that trusted relationship in the first 14 days. And when you don't build a trusted relationship in that early stage, family begins to look for things that maybe aren't going so well.
Correct.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
So this is what we created, and this is the brainchild of a lot of people, and we will give attributions to everybody as we get this published. But this is kind of a sneak peek. Yeah. And Francis, you guys have been implementing this at Assurance.
And Ariel, who I think you've had some discussions with, who oversees our Lakewood location. She was doing this. We kind of were doing this before, but what she said to me when I presented her with the actual calendar, she goes, I love it. I can visualize it now. Like before we had our protocol in place of how we wanted to communicate, right? But now she sees this visual. She's like, this is super easy. And then tying that in with Serenity, she knocks it out. I mean, it is a very comprehensive, effective, efficient, and compassionate approach because we're not guessing anymore. Right? We took the guesswork out. We just point blank said, this is what we want you to do. And she's like, cool, I can do this. This is super easy. And when someone says that to me that I work with, it makes me feel like, wow, we're adding a better service to our clients and residents, but I'm not overloading the staff, because that's a concern that I always have.
And you have to, because we have limited hours in the day. We have residents that we're taking care of. And I mean, there is just a lot to do. There's also all the rules and regulations. And, it's not as simple as it appears if you have not been on the inside.
Exactly. Can I ask you a question as a family? How is it better for you to always be bombarded with information via text, or do you prefer the option to kind of look at it when you want?
I like to look at it when I want, and I like to be able to communicate as I remember things, because this is how I operate in my world. So in business, at home, everything. To be able to just message and even message something as simple as, and I did this with both my parents, be able to message, hey, how's dad's supply of Depends? And know that I wasn't going to get an answer that moment, but I was going to get an answer that day or the next day, and that was fine. Anything urgent or sensitive, I always called, but things like, how's mom doing today? Can I see a photo? I miss her. What did dad do today? Did he get up? Did he get out of his room? Right? Yeah. And I want to say something too, because there's different levels of acuity. So, I find that, at least for serenity is most impactful when you have a loved one that you can no longer trust their self-report. And by that, I mean, my mom was nonverbal the last 2 years of her life. I couldn't have called her up and said, how you doing, mom? My dad was verbal, very verbal. And yet, if I called him and said, how you doing, Dad? He would say, they haven't fed me in days. No one's been in weeks. And of course, I knew this was untrue, because I was there the day before, pre-COVID, right? So it's very interesting to think about it from that perspective, because what happens then is that's when family has to rely on the care staff.
Correct.
To tell us what's going on. And that's where that care circle you talked about was.
Let me go ask you a question though, because let's say you have the resident has no family local, and they get that call that I haven't been fed in 4 days, and there's no other updates. The residence hasn't communicated, the facility, the ED. To me, that family, it could be on a panic, a terror, right? I mean, they're just, who knows what's going to happen, right? I mean, that's what that one simple sentence, they haven't fed me in 4 days, even though that it's not accurate, that could just begin to spiral out of control.
Absolutely. And that is where we start to think about things like, who is the team? What is the team doing? Who do I contact if I have that? And so if we look at the next page here, what we're doing in this context of this calendar is we're actually adding some additional information for each day. So this booklet will become something, and it's in progress right now. It will be available as an e-booklet or an actual physical pamphlet that really educates the care team. Here is how you can build this trust. And so we really broke it out into what's happening on day one. And we give a little synopsis of, boy, move-in day. Everyone is at the start of a new normal. The family is probably thinking or feeling something along these lines, like, boy, I hope I made the right choice. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. I feel really relieved, but I feel really guilty.
Oh, yeah. The caregiver guilt is real.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is real. It is real. And then you start to think, okay, if that's how the family's feeling, what can the community do to help alleviate that? The first thing you can do is tell them who to contact if they have any concerns. And I know you do this, and I know that upon move-in, you get introduced as the family member to all these people, but you don't really remember. So
you're overwhelmed. I mean, period, right? I mean, you're overwhelmed. You're happy, sad, angry, mad. I mean, you're going literally through the gamut of of emotions, right? And the idea that you're going to remember people's names and phone numbers and emails is a myth. I mean, right? It's a myth.
Right. Right. So yeah, so being able to introduce them, maybe even send a photo of who that person is and why you would reach out to them and how. And then also giving them a quick evening update, just showing mom or dad and just like, you know what, your mom settled in great. She had dinner. She is sitting with another resident. And we have some comments that we want to show, but I first want to hit on this myth at the bottom.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and this is amazing to me. There is this big myth that family is just relieved to get mom or dad moved in to a residential care. Like they can go, oh, good, it's taken care of. Right? So the reality here is taken from research. This is not something I made up or the collaborative circle made up. It's taken from research, and it says, well, relocation alleviates many issues for the family caregiver. It does not consequently reduce their stress. It continues and may even worsen. And I definitely experienced that. So I think what we're doing here is showing that it's kind of simple. There's a simple fix to this. We just have to think about it.
I'm curious. Why do you think it worsens? Is it because of the lack of transparent communication or the lack of plan? Because I don't know. That I could see it continues, but that kind of shocks me a little bit that it may even worsen.
So what happens is we get them moved in, and we do have a sense of relief,
right.
and that sense of relief is I don't have to worry about them 24/7, right? And then we start to realize that we have a lot of people now that we're coordinating and we're communicating with. So I don't know if the doctor has rounded. I don't. And of course, most family members are in the sandwich generation where we're talking about, full time at work, we can't visit. And especially in COVID, we can't visit. So we start to then worry about, did the doctor visit? Did mom get her hair cut? What's happening? Mom is starting to go downhill, but I'm not getting any information about, maybe what phase of Alzheimer's she's in, or, is this normal? That kind of thing.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. It's really cool though, when I look at this page here and correlating it back or tying it back to the calendar, is this can be a collaborative effort of the team. So we're getting things set up, right? And then it's super quick for that team member that is going to enter it into Serenity, right? To make it super easy. So again, we're not adding workload. We just made it easier on everybody, that we're just sharing an update. We're sending that positive. We're showcasing our hard work, right? We're highlighting the great work that we do.
Yeah, exactly. And we can probably go back now to show some of the comments that people are sharing. This is really exciting. So Dignity Hospice, thank you. Whoever is watching from Dignity, thank you. I'm so fortunate to be partnered with Dignity Hospice. And what they say here is that Serenity has given them the ability to give the gift of time to connect more frequently and more efficiently. And I love that. Thank you. I so appreciate that. I also see a note here about adding peace across the board, staff and resident. And that is super important. It's adding that peace of mind, but also education along the way. Not all family member wants to be involved, but there are the family members who do. And I think it's really important that we educate when we can.
Absolutely. And that's why I asked you that question of, checking it when you want, right? A lot of times when we hear a ding on our phone or something like that, we have a hard time not looking at it, right? But, or an email, right? But, you can have the notifications on or off for Serenity, right? And you can look at it when you want. So you're not feeling that consistent pressure to respond or have an input. And that's what we also found that families like, is they're not having to use a text. They can look at it when they want, which again, that's adding the piece to the family, because we don't want to stress them out anymore than they already are. And because my biggest concern is that we don't give the family the right information at the right time, they're not going to feel connected, and they're going to either be more upset, more sad, more angry. But if we're showcasing the amazing work that our direct care team does, that our whole care team does, they'll feel this sense of comfort. And so hopefully, instead of worsening their, as that reality said, worsening their anger or their sadness as they move somebody in, well, at least maybe keep it the same or reduce it a little bit.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things I want to touch on there. You've mentioned like really highlighting the care that you're providing.
Mm-hmm.
Without a tool like Serenity, and of course I'm biased, but without a tool like Serenity, it's really hard for family to ever get an idea of what's happening, the extraordinary care that happens all day, every day in almost every care community across the nation.
Correct.
We have no idea. And this gives you insight into that without adding time to the staff members. And that is one of the things that I also want to come back to, is that 50% of family members aren't getting the right amount of information. And do you want to know what the research said about what the information is for the 50 who feel like they're getting it?
I'm sure I don't want to know, but what is it?
No, it's actually really awesome.
Okay, good.
The ones who feel like they're getting enough information about their own loved one, who care, they're like, I got it about the facility. I want to know what my mom is like. Right. They're getting a small anecdote about their loved one. Simple, right? 2-second text. Your mom got up and we went out and walked in the garden today.
Oh, that's so cool.
Or they got a photo, or they got an update on their loved one's mood. That's it. It is so dead simple. And that's when it breaks my heart that half of all family members aren't getting that, and that they're afraid to ask for more. And this gives them the ability to ask for more without feeling like they're putting burden on the staff, because they know the staff will get to it when they can get to it.
Yeah. No.
Right.
Yeah. We've got to stop just accepting what we're told. I mean, right? Because think about every time you've asked more in your life. Restaurants, people ask more from waiters and waitresses, right? I mean, you ask more from your doctors, when you go get your physical exam, but yet now when we're talking about senior care, we don't want to ask more or ask for something different. I mean, that to me I don't want to say brainwashed, but we've just accepted the status quo. I mean, it's status quo for sure. And there are so many communities that we're highlighting over at Mavericks of Senior Living. So check that out too. Yep. We're highlighting some incredible places that are doing just amazing things. And our goal is, both at Serenity and at Mavericks of Senior Living, is to highlight the bright spots in the industry and really share that innovative thinking. So Francis, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, it's important. What you're doing and what you're trying to highlight, it's very important. It really is.
It is, and I believe, and I don't just believe, I know it's the way of the future. We have to come together as a collaborative circle of care around our individual loved ones and make sure that they have the best quality of life. And so I appreciate you coming on my show. I'm excited for our upcoming Mavericks of Senior Living episodes. We have some amazing ones coming up, so I hope that you watch that as well. And for those of you who are watching, again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to post them. We will have this ebook available within the next probably week or two. So keep an eye out for that. Stay tuned and reach out to me at Catherine@serenityengage.com, or just go to our website and you'll find more information about the booklet. All right. Thanks so much for joining us today, everybody. Have a great Thursday.